Les Paul Middle School, and that's more towards downtown Waukesha. So I do the same job, but I do it in 3 different schools: Randall, Saratoga, and Les Paul.
What do you do when you work here?
Well, that's a very good question, because I do a lot of things. I'm part of student services, so student services are kind of like I serve students and help them with any problem or concerns, and many times that means helping their family. So I sometimes help families with resources, like if they need clothing, or if they need food, or if they need shelter or a place to live, because sometimes unfortunate things happen where somebody had to leave their apartment, or they had a fire, and so they might need to go and stay with family or friends. So I assist with resources, food, clothing, shelter, but also other things. Sometimes I work with poor families that don't have much money, so they might not be able to afford school supplies or other things, so I help them, again, with some resources to help the family. So sometimes it might be material things they need, like school supplies or clothes or food. Sometimes I'm helping them with resources such as that they need help with, what's another resource that I'm thinking about, like getting help for a problem, like if they need to go to a counseling center, I may help with that, or see a special doctor for something. So I also help them out with resources that are outside of school too, different agencies or people that might also help the student there in school.
How important is it to have somebody that helps our community like that? I think some people that I see writing on their sheets while Mr. Petersen is talking. For some of us where it's hard to make letters, we can still draw pictures of maybe Mr. Petersen helping give out those resources to the people that need that in one of our bottom boxes. Olivia, you will have our next question.
No.
Yeah. Oh, Nathan, I think this question was actually meant for Mr. Fisk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Nathan, I'm gonna have you ask that question for our next VIP, okay?
Okay, got
Thank
it.
you. Olivia, would you ask this question, please? Do you need help with that on the board? Can you see it? It says,
How old? I am. What was that? Yeah,
50,
that was close.
51.
The first one was,
5, 6.
so somebody said a 6. First one was a 6. The
61.
second digit was a
61.
0. Just 60. Yep, 60, 60.
that
Yeah,
definitely is
you were
an
really close with 60.
interesting fact. I thank you for those of you that are using your note sheets. Bennett,
What year? I came here when STEM first opened up. Does anybody know when that is? Because we're at STEM 6.0, so that means something. Yeah.
Last year.
Nope, it's been open, this is the 6th year of STEM. Yep.
2004.
No, I think it opened up, so if it's 6 years and we're at 2015, it would be about 2009 or 2010 school year.
very nice.
Does that sound right? You know your history?
I believe I remember hearing 2009, yes.
when do I get here? I usually try and get to school, all the schools by 7:30, sometimes 7:15, and sometimes I have a meeting at 7 o'clock, so then I get here a little bit earlier. So I'd say between 7 and 7:30 each day.
Between 7 and 7:30. That's a good question, Charlie. We have 3 more questions. Callie, did you have a question that we needed to ask? Yeah? Alright, we have 3 questions. I'm going to ask you to show your best attentive listening, which means our voices are they're gonna be off listening to the people that are talking. That's Noah, Addison, and Sasha, and of course Mr. Petersen. Noah, you have our next question.
How many kids do you work with?
How many kids do you work with?
That's another good question, because we used to keep track, keep statistics, but we haven't done that lately. So now, all I can say is I work with quite a few kids from each building that I work with. I'm working with students every week, every day. So if I'm working with even one student a day, you know, I'm probably meeting with over, 100 in a school year. So a lot of different students at different points I might work with.
That is another very interesting fact and something that's very important to the community. Very important indeed. We have 2 questions. Addison, do you need some help with this one?
That's another good question, because most of the time, if I start at 7:15, I can leave at 3:15, or if I start at 7:30, I can leave at 3:30. But my job involves lots of times contacting parents, and some of your parents are at work when you're at school. So some of my phone calls are coming towards the end of the day. So even though I can leave a little bit earlier, I many times stay until 4, 5. Usually I try and leave by 5 o'clock, because I have in my head an idea that I'd like to be home by 6 o'clock for supper, to not have it stretch out too long. So I leave usually by 5 o'clock every day.
Very good to know. Sometimes it's a long day to work hard to help a lot of people. Sasha, you have our last question for Mr. Petersen, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the things we have on our sheets. Sasha?
What do you do when you're off work?
That's a good one. What do you do when you're out of school?
Nothing.
Do you play? Yeah. I like to play. Sometimes I play with my dogs. Sometimes I bowl. I'm on a bowling team. I like to golf, to swing a club at a funny little white ball. I really like to ride my bike as much as I can, because that's a way I get exercise. And speaking of exercise, I usually try and take at least one class at the YMCA throughout the school year. And I usually take a cycling class where you are riding on a bike that doesn't move, but it does give you the exercise. Did you have a question about?
I go to the YMCA for swimming class.
Okay.
I go there too.
So a lot of people do go to the Y,
I'm going there too.
and it's a fun thing for you many times to be there, do something active, take a class.
I always go.
So that's a really interesting connection that some of you guys have for Mr. Petersen. So if you're someone that goes to the Y, maybe you can either write or draw a picture of that on your sheets. What is something that one of you guys chose to include on your sheet? Interesting facts go on the top. Sasha, what did you choose to include?
I He teaches at 3 different schools. So that's a really interesting.
That is a really interesting fact, and that stretches all the way across our community. It's a very cool thing to write down. Does anyone else want to share what they took away from Mr. Peterson today? Noah.
I made a little school because he helps them.
That's good. So you drew a school because he helped in schools. Very good. We're going to be using these sheets to help us make one of those products we talked about yesterday. A brochure, perhaps. Let's go ahead and tell Mr. Peterson thank you.
Thank you.
It really seems like you have quite a few ways to help the community. We've been talking about how we can do good deeds to help our community. So
Good.
it's good to hear how other people are doing that. So we'll take a few minutes to be able to write or draw a couple of those pictures in, and then we'll have time for our